So firstly, good morning and welcome to everybody. My name is Bruce Kidd. I'm the Sales Marketing Director here at Oasis. And today I'm going to take you through a very introductory session of Pegasus XRL, where we will look at the four main report types. Please know, those of you that's been through some of our training before, you probably will recognize the exercises, but this is a good reminder and a good starting point for using XRL because it covers the main things that you want to do in there. Of course, there is much more in XRL than these four report types, but I'm not going to touch on that, and you might see some of those in the menu items as we go through the presentation as well as the live demonstration when we get to that. So Pegasus XRL provides an intelligent link between your account's product and your Microsoft Excel. It allows you to access and exchange data held within Pegasus Opera 3, all versions, as well as Pegasus CIS and Operations 2. And that's done from within Excel. The extensive functionality of Excel is enhanced through XRL, enabling powerful reporting and presentation. XRL is powered by info query and analysis. So you'll sometimes see it installed as Q&A, info Q&A, as you see in the menu here at the bottom. And it's an Excel add-in displayed as an item on the menu bar in Excel. Purpose-built functions represented on the XRL menu allow dynamic and flexible access to data to populate Excel worksheets. As you can see here at the bottom, I've put the full menu down, and we're really going to be cover that part there for the cell. But as you can see, there are wizards you can use. There's summary, transactions, cube analysis you can do, as well as a bunch of utilities underneath there, which further enhances the XRL functionality. The most common concern for users of accounting and business software is the inability to easily extract meaningful information from their system in order to gain timely insights into the performance of their business. Award-winning XRL is a powerful tool which links your Opera 3 SQL SE, Opera 3, and all the other versions with Excel, enabling you to import live financial data into a spreadsheet. With its flexibility, ease of use, and advanced drill-down capabilities, Pegasus XRL delivers fast and accurate information to provide enhanced analytical power for better decision-making. At this point in time, I think it's also worth mentioning that although I only said Opera 3 in there, this menu structure is exactly the same when you link your Pegasus XRL to your CIS product, either CIS version 4 or CIS version 5, because the functionality behind it sits exactly the same. So that was the XRL bit as an introduction. So let's kick off immediately and let's look at the first report type, which we call the reference link. Now, a reference link allows users to extract one record from the chosen database for each field selected in XRL. For example, if the sales account code field is chosen in XRL, then only a single code is extracted from Opera, and by default, it will extract the first sales account in the sales account table. Reference links looks at header information only. When using this type of report, only fields from header tables can be chosen and no transaction tables are visible. A reference link report is a dynamic link to Opera. So a dynamic link is represented by a formula retained in a cell within an Excel worksheet. This formula can then be saved within the worksheet and copied to other locations in the worksheet. It's important that when selecting any option on the XRL menu, the cell to be populated with data is already selected. You'll see that when we do the menu, when we do the live demo in a moment. So after selecting reference link from the menu item, the XRL menu, the definition form appears. There are three sections on the definition form. We have our filter selection at the top half of the window. We have our selection list here, which is dependent on the table you select, and then we have the output selection there. All the items that's in bold is mandatory on this menu that appears, this form that appears. So the product, the company ID, the table, and of course the output that I put out to Excel would all be mandatory fields in here. If I double click on the table field, I'm presented with a list of tables that is available for my selection. And when I open that, I have a further set of tables underneath from where I make my selection. In this case, accounts has been selected. So once a table is selected, the available fields are shown in the selection list, like down here. And once I've selected these items to output, by double clicking them, they turn green and they're transferred to the output window. So you'll see some target cells in there, and we'll talk about them later when we do our demo. The output section. Target cells can be defined for the extracted data. If no target cells are defined, then the output fields are displayed horizontally by default, so from left to right, where the definition form was opened and the formula is stored. To define target cells, we click once on the output item and then click on the Excel cell the data is to be extracted to. To remove an item, we merely drag it from the output window back to the selection list, or we can right click and use the delete key. Fields can also be combined in the output window. So by right clicking on an output item and selecting combinations, you can specify fields which should appear together. So for example, address fields lines 1 and line 2 could be amalgamated into one output field. On the filtering section, which sits at the top, you can drag an item from the selection list, can be dragged up into the filter section, or you can right click the main item and select filter. You are then able to filter that specific field. You can filter using either a field or a cell reference. If a cell reference is used, the data in the cell reference will be shown in the value from column. To apply a filter, click on your chosen field in the selection list and drag it up into this filter area. You click and type in the filter from box, or use the browse button to the right of the box to specify the filter. To apply a cell reference, click once in the box and then click once in the Excel cell. You'll see when we do that in a moment. If a cell reference is used, there must be data in that cell prior to applying the filter. Using the F4 toggle key will filter between a relative or absolute on those fields as it appears in there. If no filter is applied, then the report will return the first field it finds in the table that's selected. To remove a filter, you drag it out of the filter area back to the selection box, or you can press the delete key in the filter. And lastly, in this area is our formatting. All formatting for reference links is performed in Excel. Formatting is not overwritten when refreshing extracted data. Print areas are set, therefore, in reports in Excel. Cells containing XRL formulas can be copied, cut and pasted, and cell references will be automatically updated. Any filters containing absolute cell references will not be updated. It means that you can set up a reference link and you can copy that link to another cell, and the data will be, the formula will be copied over with it. So let's hop on into our first little demonstration, where we're going to be looking at creating a reference link to one of our customers, pulling some data out. So let's just get to our XRL, which I have pre-prepared. So I've put some labels on here. There are absolutely no XRL formulas in this at all. I merely put an account label, address label, a telephone label. I put some labels of balance when we get there later, and some date references, which I want to use later on. But I'm just going to start here at the top and put my highlight cell B2 at this point in time. I'm going to type in that cell an account number that I know from my system, 0001. I'm going to go into my address field, and at this point in time, from the top, I'm going to select a reference link. This will bring up my reference link selection boxes. Now going out from the top, first we have our product. This is where I want to mention, if you link to Opera 3, that's what you select from here. If your link is to CIS, then this is where you select the CIS link, and it will do exactly the same thing as you see here. Then from there, you go into the company you want to do your selection from. And the third option here is the table. Now, we are really just going to pull out some address information for one of our customers or some of our customers. So I'm going to open the sales area, and from here, I'm going to select the accounts table. I'm going to say OK to that. And with selecting that immediately down the left-hand side on my selection list, I now have a selection of table fields available for me to select to output to my report. I also would have, as these pluses are any linked tables that might be linked to this, where I can pull any additional information out. For example, terms profiles, price lists under those terms, any information. I'm just going to start off by filtering first the account, because we've got an account in there. I'm going to drag my account up into my filter section. I'm going to highlight my filter section here, and I'm going to click on my account in there. It puts the reference for me in there immediately. The reason it's yellow highlighted is because it can find information in the cell that I've referenced. And the information it can find, it shows me in the value from column immediately. Now back to my selection list. I want to output the customer name. I'm going to take all the address details down here, really just double clicking them down to my telephone number, for example. Now, as standard, XRL will output the fields horizontally on my report, but I don't want the address to go that way. I want the address to go down. This is where we, in our output section, can highlight the field we want to target. Now, the first field I don't need to highlight because it's going to output in the cell that I selected when I started this report. So I'm going to go down to my address line 2, and I'm going to click there where I want it to output. I'm going to do the same for line 2. I'm going to do the same for line 3, line 4, the postcode, and eventually the telephone number. Now I've made my selection of all these areas, and I kind of expect my window to look pretty much like that. When I say OK to this, the data is extracted, and I should expect it to look something like this at the moment. Can you notice how the name is output to the cell without selecting it, and the address line going down because I selected it in the report as such? At this point, because I referenced that cell to another report in here, I can now double click my account code. I can select any of the accounts on my list. It will highlight that. Notice how it did not update the report at the bottom. So this is a good point for me to talk about recalculate. So anything we do in XRL, when we've done that, we need to recalculate our report. And there are several ways of doing so. First way, we can use our recalculate up here, recalculate our workbook, which is the workbook we're looking at, or the worksheet. I'm going to just do the sheet. And what happens immediately is you would notice it updates the address information, the telephone information, as it should have based on that. I can also right click on my report anywhere and go down here and find the XRL recalculate worksheet, and it will do exactly the same thing for me. But I can also be clever And as you can see, I've got a little macro built in here. This macro will just, when I click it, it will run. Now, to build a macro for a recalculate function is pretty easy, and I'm going to show you how to do that. But because I've done it so many times on my Excel sheet, the one that I'm creating wouldn't work because it won't be overwriting that one. But I will show you how to do it because it will work on your system. So in the utilities here at the top, I can go to macro builder. In the macro builder, I can scroll down and I can find recalculate worksheet or workbook or range. The workbook is a good one because if you've got several XRL reports along several workbooks, it will recalculate all of them in one go if you use the button. I'll use that button for now, recalculate the workbook. I double click it here at the bottom. I can select from here, I can select the workbook I'm working on. So you can see it's the training one. Select that. And here in the options, it really wants me to name my macro. And here it wants to know the button it puts down, what I want that button to be. Recalculate my book, for example. And if I say OK to that, that's what happens here. I have this button appear on there, and every time I change information, like if I do that, I select another account in here, it hasn't updated. I can now use that to recalculate my workbook. So that's what would happen. I'm going to just delete that from my workbook. But now you know how to build a little macro, and you can do that on any of your Excel worksheets. Says you're having to remember to recalculate manually. Effectively, you can just press the button. So back to our little presentation. That was the reference link part of the report. So report type reference link, where you pull out references for the cells that you deal with. A summary link. So one record of summarized data is extracted from Opera for each field in XRL. For example, if a summary link is created with an output field of the sales transaction value and filtered by sales account, then it will output one value which summarizes all the transactions for that particular account. Summary links look at transaction files only. When using this type of report, only fields from transaction tables can be chosen and no other header tables are visible. A summary link report is also a dynamic link to Opera. A dynamic link is represented by a formula retained in a cell within an Excel worksheet. This formula can be saved within the worksheet and copied to other locations in the worksheet. So filtering in the summary link is a little bit different. A summary link is defined in the same way as a reference link, with one addition. The filter allows a to and from. This means a summary link can be used to extract the balance of a filtered range. For example, the total of all transactions on multiple sales accounts can be extracted together. The values in the filter from and filter to fields can be entered manually, entered using the browse buttons, or can be cell references. The browse button pops a list as seen below for users to select from. So the from and to can be selected from the list by double clicking on one item for the from and then on the second item for to, or by using the control key on the keyboard. A range or a multiple selection can be made, as you can see from my image on the right. You can also do that manually in the filter button by using a wildcard key of those two symbols, followed by your accounts with commas that you want to pull the report out for. Not really seen anybody do that so far, as you can get the information by selecting. You can also achieve by dragging the same field into the filter selection more than once, and if those filters use an or if it's dragged more than once. So depending on the type of filter used, the browse screen may appear differently. So the above browse screen is for a text-based field we saw a moment ago, such as an account. If filtering by value, then a numerical browse screen would appear. And if filtering by date, then a date browse screen would appear. So it allows me the from and to areas that we have seen, and we'll see some of those working in a moment. When choosing where the data will be extracted from, you can see that we are now offered a different choice of tables. SN accounts is no longer in the list, and instead we can see the transactions. Only transaction tables can be selected when defining a summary link, and no header tables are available. So summary link uses 4 extraction methods for transactions. We have sum, count, minimum, or maximum. And as you can see at the bottom, we can see what each one of those do. And just to mention, a reference and summary links, as we will see in a moment, can be created on the same Excel worksheet. Formatting for summary links is also done via Excel and is not overwritten when refreshing extracted data. Print areas must be set in Excel in the usual method. Excel cells containing summary link formulas can be cut, copied and pasted to other Excel cells, and the cell references will be automatically updated. Any filters set to an absolute cell reference will not change. So this is the point at which we're going to pop back to our Excel and look at creating some summary links. So in preparation for the summary links, I put down here a little bit of an age analysis for our customer that we are looking at here at the top. So we've got a balance, we've got our current area, we've got our 1 month, 2 months, and 3 months plus. I also put the from and to date that these relate to. Notice on the balance, there's no date range needed because we're just going to pull the balance out. And this is what we do for our summary link. We summarize information and give one output in an Excel cell. So let's start by selecting cell A15 and let's get our balance pulled out through our summary link. I'm going to select the summary link from the top. I've got the data in there. I'm going to select my table, which is my sales table. And I'm going to look at our transactions this time. I need to filter firstly. I need to filter the account because that's what I'm looking at. So the account to and from, I'm going to use my field there. As you can see, it puts the references absolute in for me. If I click into the filter to, it now will just put the same reference in there for me. I just want to look at one customer on here, and I can see the filter from and to working up here. Now, the next thing I want to do, I don't need to filter by date in this instance. I just want to have an output of the balance of my customer, because that is what I want to see in there. If I say OK to that now, it will go away and it will pull out the full balance of my customer that sits under there. I can go to Opera 3 and show you that, but that definitely is correct. Let's build our second summary link. This time, we also need to filter by date because I only want to see current month information, if there is anything, of course. I'm going to select my summary link from the top again, having highlighted the field I want the output to be in. Of course, I'm going to select my table, which is my sales transactions table. This time, I'm going to pull my account in the pull my account in the top. I'm going to use my filter again. I'm going to use my F4 key this time because I want it to be totally absolute like that. And if I click into the next one, it would be correct. I also want to filter on my date, so I'm going to pull my date filter into my filter section, and I can filter my date from that cell. Click in the next one and click to the cell I want to change from. So you can see cell B13 to B14. And of course, my output is the balance for transactions that falls within the date range I have specified for the customer I've specified. If I say OK to that, it would now just copy that put information for me. Now, I can copy that cell, I can paste it there. Double click my formula. You would have noticed it's copied the formula across. If I look at something like my account, because the references were absolute, it doesn't move cells along. It stays in that one place. And on the date field, because the cell 13 is absolute, it stays, moves along 13, it stays in C. So it's moved on and the references are correct. So I know the information is correct in there. I can also just pull that cell across like that to my 2 months. And again, I would notice that it's copied my account, it's put the right information in there. It's copied my dates, it's put the right information there. The output is still correct. And in the last instance, I also want to show you that you don't have to put the dates in fields to reference. You can use your summary link, select your sales transactions. I'm going to put my balance out. Let's pull our account into the top, select our account there. Let's pull our date in the top. And this time, instead of selecting our date from the dates there, I'm going to put my date in here. Which is the dates I'm filtering off for 3 months plus. Say OK to that and say OK to that. And you would now see that the balance on my customer, everything is 3 months plus outstanding. Now, I've built my references. I can hide those fields. I don't need to see them. And now I can show you what happens because I have a from and a to as my report now at the bottom has that. I can now select a from and to in here. And when I recalculate, it would recalculate the information based on the selection I just did, including here at the bottom. Of course, I can further manipulate this report and do some formatting to make it look nice, but this is pulled out. So here at the top, I've used the reference link to pull that information out. As you can see, it sits in there. And so far, I now have used this information here to pull out summary links to summarize information in that format for me. Cool, let's go back to our presentation. So that was our summary link. I'm going to talk about our summary report next. So multiple lines of summarized data are extracted from Opera for each field selected in XRL. For example, if a summary report is created to extract date and sales transaction value for a specific sales account, then it will produce one line for each date and a summarized value of the transactions on that date. Summary reports look at transaction files only. When using this type of report, only fields from transaction tables can be chosen and no header tables are visible. A summary report is not a dynamic link to Opera. You can see in the formula below there is no references to the Excel cell the formula is in. This type of report can be copied between worksheets, but any copies must be saved under a new name on the XRL definition form. The same 4 extraction methods are used: sum, count, minimum, and maximum. The summary report definition form, once selected from a report, looks a little bit like this. The selection list is almost the same as the summary and reference link. The only exception is that the numerical items are shown in red. Unfortunately, you can't see it on there because once selected, they turn green, but the wording is in red. They will automatically be summarized in the output section. To apply a different extract mode, double-click the item and select the required extract mode. Ascending or descending sort orders can be applied to output data items using the sort button. You access the sort button in the report design as we've seen earlier on. I'll show you again when we get there. And then you get to select one of the fields or some of the fields you want to sort on. There are also two additional tabs. We have the report style and the options at the top. The report style tabs allows you to format your report using a selection of pre-formatted styles from the drop-down list. You can then decide which formats of the predefined styles you would wish to use by checking or unchecking the available tick boxes. Formatting can be applied from within the report definition form or using Excel formatting. If you wish to use Excel formatting, then you must select the None radio button there. If you select Auto Format and None from the drop-down list, this will delete any Excel formatting each time the report is refreshed. Print areas are still defined and always defined in Excel. And on the options tab, we've got a couple of options there. The show message is to indicate that XRL messages would be displayed if anything happens or if there's any problems. And create definition formula. Basically means that if you create internal or external definition formulas, these will be retained in the cell reference and you wouldn't have to rewrite a report every time you want to run it. So it keeps in the cell as we saw earlier on. We've got two methods of saving report definitions. We've got internal definition and external definitions. The internal definition saves the setup details of your report inside the Excel workbook. So a default name is entered, which can be changed. You can click OK to run the report and the internal definition is saved to the workbook. The Excel workbook is then saved in the normal method. This means you can pick up that internal definition on another report and apply. The same with the external definition. It only means that it saves externally to the workbook as a certain file type of ADB or ATP. And this is just telling us how you can reopen those using the XRL function launcher that you find under XRL utilities. So let's have a quick look at our summary report. The summary report, I'm going to pull out some sales history information for the accounts or the customer we have been dealing with so far. I'm going to open a new tab for the sales history report. As you can see, I've put a label on there already. I've also put a label of account and from and to. I want to see the history for the year of 2023 effectively for my account. So I can start off firstly by putting the account number I want to apply to this report in here, but I'm going to cheat and put that equal to the account that we have in there. So that every time I change the accounts on the front, it also will change here and apply the report that I'm going to write now. So let's select cell A8 and let's open our summary report. Now, first we'll notice we get from our list the same selection area at the top. And now I'm going to select, because I'm using writing a history report, I'm going to use my sales history area for this. First things first, I want to pull out the account. I'm going to pull the account from there. And I also want to reference the date I've put in there. Do that. And do that. And now I'm going to output certain bits of information I want to see in my report. I'm going to put the account out. I'm going to go down here. I'm going to find the value. As you can see, it's in red because it's a numerical field. I'm going to also pull out the quantity, the cost price. Shall I pull out the product code? And here, one of my linked tables is my stock names table, my stock table. I'm also going to put the stock description from there. Now, on the right-hand side in the output selection, I can drag my field up to an area I want. So I want to see the account and the product, and of course the description needs to be next to the product. So I'm going to just pull this up using the button there. But I also want to sort this report in a certain order. So I'm going to right click here, use the sorting functionality. I'm going to sort by product code. Say OK to that. So the sorting has appeared there. It shows me it's going to be against the product code. I'm going to move to the report style tab, and I'm going to leave it on auto format. I just want to show you in our drop down box here, there's quite a lot of different styles you can use from the list. And if you select one, you see in the preview here on the right, it will put out whatever it is, you know, you've selected. I'm just going to go for classic number 2. And in the options area, I'm going to keep the show message. I'm going to keep the create definition formula, because that means once I've created the report, it's going to sit in from there onwards. I can access it and edit it from that cell I started from. And here is, I can name it internally, or I can name external references, which just sits in an area on my server, which I can use afterwards. I don't need to do all of that right now. I'm going to say OK to my report. And what's happened immediately is it's pulled out the data for account ADA 0001 for the dates that I've selected. Now, this report is now obviously interactive. I might come in here and decide I only want to look at 22, actually, and not 23. And I can recalculate my worksheet, and it will change my report immediately. Of course, from here, my front sheet, because I've already built this information, I can double click that form, reset the filters by using the little yellow button there, select trusty old Adams drinks, say OK to that, recalculate. Now, just recalculate this sheet here as well. And now I would have all my Adams information here, as well as the history report that relates to that account for those dates I've set out there. Sorry, my summary report, my history summary report. Just summarizes our transactions for a selection we've done. That summary could be on anything. You could have summarized on product code or whatever you wanted to. So let's go back to our XRL. We're almost there. So that kind of covers our summary report. And the last one I'm going to cover is our detail report, and probably the one that I personally use the most. So detail report gives one Excel line of information for each record selected from the database. For example, if a detail report is set up to extract sales transactions from a specific sales account, then it will list each single transaction on that account, effectively the same as the account view from within Opera or from within CIS. Detail reports look at everything, header and transactional information. All tables are visible. A detail report is not a dynamic link to Opera. You can see in the formula formulas that there is no reference to the Excel cell in the formula. So the same as it was with our summary report. You can copy this type of report between worksheets, but you must save it under a new definition, otherwise it will overwrite the original definition. The detail report accessed through the menu there is the same as the summary report. So we also have our report style and our options there at the top. And filtering and sorting are applied in exactly the same way as we've seen before. The only difference in the output section is that there is no summary function, so values cannot be summed, counted, or output as minimum or maximum. It's because it brings out a line for each detail that I have. The other tabs work the same as the summary report, with the report style tab allowing formatting to be applied, and the options tab allows the report to be saved in the same way as in the summary report. So let's go on and let's complete our statement and extract a list of transactions for our customer. Let's go back to our account tab. And now what I want to do is pull out a list of transactions that represents what I have going on up here for my customer. And that really represents a full statement that I have pulled out for this specific customer. So I'm going to start here in cell A17, and I'm going to select my detail report. Now, firstly, I'm going to pull out from my table sales transactions. As you can see, all the tables are now available that you can pull information from. And then I'm going to start by pulling my account into the top. I'm going to filter my account back to my cell B2. That's what I want to see here at the bottom. And then what do I want to see? I want to see the date. I want to see the reference. I want to see my customer reference. I probably want to see the type to know if it was invoice, credit note, or whatever it might be. I want to see the value of the invoice, and I want to see the balance. Now, there can be a difference between the value and the balance because the customer might have already paid some of the value and a balance remains on the invoice. So this is about outstanding transactions that makes up our balance here. Of course, one more filter I need to think about when I'm pulling out transactions like this is, do I really want to see in a statement every transaction that has a zero balance? No, I definitely don't on a statement. So I can take my balance and pull it into my top. And the first time I'm going to show you a wildcard in play is using those two signs, which means unequal to, and I'm going to put 0 in there. I don't want to see the balance if it's 0. And I know it's a wildcard because the field turns green in the back. So if I say OK to this now, I'm expecting to see a list of outstanding transactions for that customer that makes up the value that I have on here. Of course, now I can start looking here and choose any of my customers from the list, use the recalculate, and it will recalculate all the information I have that makes up the open transaction. 73,000 in this case is what the outstanding balance is. And of course, if I recalculate my worksheet on this side, it will just pull up any information it could find based on my settings there. So as you can see, you can build up these reports. Once it's there, you save it. And tomorrow when you open your Excel spreadsheet, mine is called training, this sits exactly like that. And once I've logged into my XRL, I can access these areas and use my information as I should. So as you can see with this detailed stuff and with the summary report, this really is where you can pull out information about if you use CIS, for example, if you want to analyze your jobs and job transactions, or your subcontractors transactions, or your subcontractors orders, or your applications or certificates. All that information can be pulled into spreadsheets using one of these report types. The same in Opera 3 for using things like your nominal ledger for creating P&L, that kind of structure. You can achieve all of that using these report designs. I do want to mention that XRL has got loads more areas, as you can see here, that I haven't touched on. It's not necessary for running the software at this kind of level we are talking about today, because you will be able to write reports. And once you are comfortable with that, we can move on to looking at the more interesting areas where you have transactional drill down functionality, for example, or can create graphs and cube analysis areas. So that is the detail report we looked at. I hope that kind of helped you guys. So let's get back to our presentation, which really now is all done. And if anybody has any questions, now I would open the floor for anybody who's got anything for me, any observations. I did want to say that I will put together a little workbook that's got the 4 exercises you can try, because you can then go and try and apply them to other areas in your Opera for reporting. So I will do that after today. Send your recording as well as that. Anybody got any other questions? Any questions? No, if not, then
Hi, Bruce. I've got a question.
Yes.
With how does XRL work with table joins? So, for example, if I wanted a detail report that had material transactions and subcontractor transactions, would that work?
Yes, it's as long as the tables are linked. Now in CIS, most of them are, because the information is used when you create transactions. So when you open the selection list, you will notice down the list, firstly, the table you've selected, fields will be there. But within and down the list, you'll notice a bunch of tables with a little plus sign in front. Those are all individual tables with information in. So if you open that plus sign, you'll find all the table information against those tables. And sometimes within them, you'll find further tables, because there might be analysis fields or stuff like that that you might want to pull out, and it only sets down the table. So that's where you would have a look. So if I open my XRL just for a second and just open any report, can you see down the selection list here on the left? I pulled out my transactions, but the transactions is linked to my accounts table. So if I open the accounts, I've got all the information. But within there, I also might have a terms profile. The term sits against it, so I can pull terms information. Against the terms, there are price lists, so I can pull price list information in. And CIS, the structure is different, but how it works exactly the same, because CIS is also just a bunch of tables that's linked to each other and joined in some form of way. So you get the same visually here. It's just different names, because you might pull the job transactions out, but within that you might have your subcontractors, you might have your customers, you might have your suppliers, you'll have your transactions, you'll have your job costing stuff, because that is all relevant to the job.
Got it.
So
I guess different table names. Yeah, that does help. Thank you.
I hope that helps. Yeah. Anybody, any other questions?
Hi, Bruce. Just wanted to ask if we have a reference link within a detail report, does it have to be refreshed? When it's refreshed, it doesn't carry the same length as the summary report. Is there a way around that?
I don't think so, because how it recalculates these reports in a specific order. So I wonder if that is the issue, Teddy. If you've got a report already written, we can have a look. I can have a look for you, or we can have a look for you if we can get it faster calculating. It might just be the order in which it calculates, because it does do it in a specific order. So if you have a reference link and detail report, I think it will want to do the reference link first and the detail report second. But if the detail report is first in the list and it does the detail report first, it might not update the reference link until the second the secondary calculate. So that's why we might just need to have a look for you. We can sort that out. But I can't over here suggest what to do.
Yep, thank you.
Okay. Anybody, anything else? No, well, you guys know what my details are to contact me if you've got any questions. So thank you very much for joining me this morning. And there's quite basic training for XRL, but it does get everybody using it, so that's not a bad thing. I do want to remind you that I do run these webinars on a monthly basis. On the last Thursday of every month, we tackle a different subject every month. I will run the XRL one again, probably in 3 or 4 months' time, if anybody wants to join me again. But next month, we are looking at MJM data capture software and how that could help warehouse management, for example. So thank you very much for joining me today. And if there's nothing else, then I hope to see you on the next one. Thank you.